In this video, 5 Mega Drive games or Genesis games in the US that nobody talks about. Do they deserve more attention? Let's find out. I do a lot of videos about Sega retro video games, so if you're interested, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you get all the notifications of my new videos. The first game in my list is a video game that is somewhat later in the life cycle of the Mega Drive, and that game is a platformer game that is called Page Master. There was a cartoon Page Master and they made a video game out of that. The most striking about the games are the graphics and the sound. They are, especially for the Mega Drive, amazing. There is one big major downside. The game is pretty difficult, but not because it has a difficulty level, but because of the things they did with the game. They had a great recipe. Good sound, good graphics, but the movement of the character is pretty quick, and there is a viewport, the camera, that moves a little bit behind the movement you do. So once you turn, for example, it takes a while for the camera to adjust. On top of that, the sprites are pretty large, which means that you can't see far ahead. And that makes the game difficult, and because the character moves so quickly, it's the whole reason why the game is difficult is just because of that. And those were things that were really easily fixable. So things like character walking speed, maybe even a ROM hack can fix that issue. I don't know, why don't you test your games? The other thing that makes this game a little bit difficult is the one-hit deaths. You can collect power-ups to improve that, so you can get hit once, and you have to chase a thing that you will lose when you get hit. And if you, just like rings in Sonic, if you grab that item again, you can get hit once again. Also, one of the power-ups is jumping against the wall. Standard, you don't have that ability. That makes this game a little bit difficult, because sometimes when you want to reach places you need to collect that item. You had the great recipe for a great game, and you missed it. Up. So why does nobody talks about it? Well, regretfully, they blew it. The second game on this list is Psycho Pinball. Psycho Pinball is a pinball game, as you might expect. What is psycho about the pinball game? I don't know. The funny thing is, this game is packed in a cardboard sleeve, and it's really difficult to find the game with this cardboard sleeve. Also, the shape of the cartridge is just like Micro Machines, for example, a little bit off. The funny thing about this game is that it is surprisingly good. There are 4 tables in this pinball game: Wild West, Halloween, and a nautical theme and a circus theme. The physics engine is surprisingly good, and I have to say the game aged very well. The machines may be a bit simple, but yeah, I really like the game. By the way, there are some mini games in Psycho Pinball. I don't really know what triggers those mini games in those pinball tables, so I couldn't grab them for the footage of this video. So the question, why does nobody talk about it? Oh, well, I really don't know. It's a pretty good game. I would recommend it, and it's not really expensive at all. Number 3 on my list of the games that nobody talks about on the Mega Drive is Universal Soldier. And you might not recognize the title of this game, but this is a Turrican game, a run and gun Turrican game. In the 90s there was a movie called Universal Soldier, and they bought the rights to use the title and the artwork of the movie, but it has nothing to do with the movie. To be honest, I didn't check, I never saw the movie. I really like this game. It's incredibly hard. It's doable on the easy level, and that is the way I would play it, because otherwise it kicks my butt. The turbo button, by the way, is a must to use, because you have to press the fire well, almost every second, at least 10 times. There are different weapons in the game, and the animations of the game are surprisingly solid. There are backgrounds in the game that scroll in a certain way that is really counterintuitive. So when you move to the left, the background moves also to the left, but in a faster pace. So this part of the game gets me really nauseous. In the same level there is the same level is a maze, and I really don't like mazes in platform games or in games in general. The music is absolutely good, but sometimes a little bit too happy for my taste. And with too happy, I mean for the style of the game. There is one downside, however, there is no feedback when you get hit. So in every major platform game you will become invincible for 1 second or so, or you jump back a little bit, or you there is some kind of feedback for the player that you got hit by an enemy. There's no such thing here. For example, there are some spikes on the ceiling sometimes, and it took me a while to figure out that those spikes hurt me, but I thought that that was the background of the game. When you stand on a position where an enemy is, you are, well, invisible, but you really get hit. So why does nobody talk about it? I don't know, it's a pretty good game. It is pretty addictive too, and I would recommend it. I have to say the game is a little bit expensive and a little bit hard to find. One of the reasons is because of the cardboard box. It damages really easy, and in this case I did find the game, but regretfully without a manual, and I'm still looking for the manual of this game. The next game on my list is a game that sounds in Dutch a little bit like Pak me hand vast, and that is roughly translated as grab my hand. I'm talking about Pocahontas, and Pocahontas is a puzzle game, a Disney puzzle game. You would expect a platform game, and when you look at the game at first glance, it is indeed a platform game, but no, it's a puzzle game. And the first problem in the game is that puzzle element. You can't proceed in the game when you don't solve a puzzle. You are Pocahontas in the game or that walking teddy bear. You solve puzzles as one or the other, and sometimes Pocahontas need to help Miko or that walking teddy bear to proceed in the game. The game has some issues. There are some hit detection issues. There are some issues with solving puzzles. You can solve a puzzle only one way, and another way is absolutely not appreciated. Pocahontas gets certain abilities like jumping or floating in the air, and you need those abilities to proceed in the game. I do have to say the graphics of this game are amazing, and the sound is also pretty good. Only what I already said, it's a really slow-paced game. When you are busy solving a puzzle, the melody repeats over and 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 that gets a little bit annoying after a while, so I need to turn the music down in order to be able to play the game. And do you remember that the Prince of Persia takes a whole week to respond to a button press? Well, that's the same with this game. What I find really annoying about the game is that you don't know what you have to do. You have to figure that out, and yeah, there are some hints in the game, but they are so incredibly minimal that sometimes I'm jumping to background elements on background elements, or think that I can pick up elements and those are belonging to the background, or vice versa. That makes this game a little bit frustrating to play. Also, the controls are a little bit weird. You have to jump with B, and well, jumping is never B in Mega Drive games, and there's no way to change that. The reason why I think that nobody talks about it is out of frustration. Again, the recipes for the game were good, only what you did with it is, well, no, a failed attempt, regretfully. The next game on my list is Combat Cars for the Mega Drive by Accolade. This is a top-down racing game for the Mega Drive. To be honest, I'm not really a racing fan, and not on the PlayStation 4, not at all, but especially not the non-sprite scaled Mega Drive games on a first-person perspective. But I have to say, this is top-down, and yeah, it's okay. I don't think it's amazing, but it's okay. The way the player style that they implemented, it's good playable, because it's top down. It's something more for me. The controls, for example, is something that you have to get used to. They are very slippery and a little bit slow reacting. You can also use some weapons to attack your enemies. There is something I don't like. For example, when you choose a character, the game is based on a couple of characters which have different abilities. When you choose a character, when you view the abilities of a character, you have to do that in a separate screen. So someone is good at driving, steering, braking, accelerating. But to see that statistics of someone, you have to go into a separate screen, and you can't go back. So that is a little bit annoying. When you choose someone, you have to stick with it. This game has a 2-player feature, so you can play it with 2 players. The game plays a little bit like Micro Machines. The graphics are okay, not amazing, but they are okay, and the sound is also okay. The reason why I think that nobody talks about it, well, it does things okay, the game is okay, but it's not amazing. The Mega Drive library is pretty extensive. There are 600 or somewhat games, and there are a lot of games that nobody talks about. So I made more videos about games that nobody talks about. You can find that in the playlist right here. Also, if you know a game that nobody talks about on YouTube, let me know in the comments below.